What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Monday night live stream. Let's see who's in here right off the bat. There's a couple people in here. Elliot, what's going on, brother? I'm just going to sit back for a minute, wait for some people to come in, answer some questions. It's been a busy day, but I figured I would take like an hour or so and just stay up to date with the Monday night live stream. So, what's going on, Big LED? Camilleones, thank you again, my brother. You know I love you and appreciate it. Joe Chu, glad that you're able to stop by all the way from, let me see if I remember correctly, somewhere in Indonesia, one of the Indonesian countries. Pretty cool. And you guys got any questions or any suggestions or want to see any geckos or anything? Let me know. Let me know. Otherwise, I'll just pull out some of my favorite geckos. I might just do that. Let's see how our red stripe girl is doing. Ooh, my ankle. I hurt my ankle because I haven't worked out in a while, and so I went for a jog today, and I hurt my ankle around. Not like during the jog, I didn't hurt my ankle, but afterwards I felt it. What's going on, Jim? Can I get a super hypo tangerine carrot tail if I breed one to my hypo carrot tail? Sure. Super hypo is a line bred trait, meaning that you can get variations of high hypo or low hypo, and then tangerine is a line bred trait, meaning you can get variations of tangerine, high or low, and carrot tail, of course. So essentially, for line bred traits, which is what I won't say it. I'll say ticked, SHTCT. What that is a completely line bred animal. The carrot tail is line bred. The tangerine is line bred. The hypo is line bred. So the closer you breed two parents that are closer to all three of those line bred traits, the more the babies will be that. But if you breed one parent that is all of that stuff, and then another gecko that is not any of that stuff, or just like half of it, the babies will come out with different variances and different levels of the super hypotangerine carrot tail. By the way, if any of you guys didn't see our latest video yet, I did drop it just a couple hours ago. I thought it was pretty cool. I really enjoyed it and liked it. Top 5 morphs for advanced keepers. It's one of my favorites. Let me show you one of my favorites. And this girl actually made 11 eggs for us this year, and only how many? Only 3 of them were good. And then one of them was the baby that tore itself open, if you guys remember our Instagram story. But you could see, it's hard to pick up on camera, but she has 2 red stripes going down the middle of her back that's straddling her spine there. And so because she has some nice reddish hues and colorations to her, I'm really excited about breeding her and continuing our tangerine projects here. 2021 hatchlings are looking great. We have probably about 100 hatchlings so far. And our whole rack is filled up. So I'm going to need to start taking some babies that are bigger and moving them over to our adult rack now. Can you line breed bearded dragons? To my knowledge, I'm not the bearded dragon expert. There's actually someone on Instagram called, oh man, why did I forget his name? AZ Bearded Dragons. Extreme Dragons AZ. He's my friend out here. He is very well known in Bearded Dragons, and he's doing a live stream right now on Instagram if you want to try to catch that and ask him that question. To my knowledge, as long as the Bearded Dragon does not have defects in its DNA, you can line breed mom to son or dad to daughter or siblings. But because the gene pool of bearded dragons is a lot smaller than leopard geckos, I believe most people in the bearded dragon world, they try to outcross as much as possible, especially when it comes to like zeros and certain morphs of bearded dragon. Thanks, Camilleones. I appreciate that like. I got to go and answer all the questions. I'm a little bit behind on emails and messages, guys, but because I was making that video all day today. But hopefully I can get caught up here soon. Want to know why my mealworm beetle dried off before mating and laid eggs. So insects are very sensitive to a dry environment. You want to make sure you don't wet their tub too much, because then they could drown or mold will grow. But the way that you keep insects hydrated is by giving them vegetables. I would suggest vegetables instead of fruit, because fruit brings more mold and flies and vegetables doesn't as much. So make sure your mealworm colony or beetles have carrots and celery is what I like to use when I bred mealworms. So important question. My leopard gecko has been in labor for 4 days. Is this normal? So she's leaking and pushing but hasn't laid. I've never actually seen that before, Juicy Ankles. That is a little bit concerning. Maybe you can send me some pictures. Email me some pictures at GeekyGeckoCreations@gmail.com. I would try to give her a warm bath. To my knowledge, there's really not much else that you could do for her. It's similar to when females of mine get egg bound. There's not much that I can do for them except give them a warm bath. Because the other alternative is surgery, which is thousands of dollars and just not an option for myself or an option for most people. So I would say the warm bath makes us feel like we're contributing and helping, and it's sort of been a word of mouth thing that's been passed on down the years that warm baths can help. I've personally never experienced warm baths helping with egg-bound girls. You know, egg-bound meaning eggs that are stuck. But I have heard people say that they put their egg-bound female in some warm water and the next day she laid. You know, so it's worth a shot. I'm sorry for your gecko. That is not normal. I've never seen that in any of my females over the last 3 years that have been laying. That is concerning to me. Shigarakis, that is concerning. But I'm sorry, I don't have any further help that I could give to that. If a hyperexanthic is known for intense yellow color, okay, hyperexanthic. So xanthophores are yellow, orange, red pigment in geckos. So hyper would be more of that. And max snow takes yellow away. If you breed those together, how can you tell it's not just a normal? Hope that question makes sense. So if you have a gecko that is hyperexanthic, which is very, very colorful, like the yellows and the oranges are really showing a lot, and then you breed it to a snow, snow is axanthic. It takes away the xanthophores, or let me put it this way. We're going to get a little bit genetic. We're going to get a little bit genetic here in a little bit. The snow gene is actually axanthic in leopard geckos. When you have one copy of it, it takes away a certain level of color, yellow and orange color. It takes away a certain level of xanthophores, which are those skin cells that give the geckos color. It takes away a certain amount of those. When the gecko has 2 copies of the snow gene, it's called a super snow, and it takes away all xanthophores. So now the gecko is axanthic, meaning lacking xanthophores. So, in essence, Jim, Geckoasis, if you take an axanthic leopard gecko and you breed it to a hyper, here's what's gonna happen is, let me see if I can explain this, okay? So you have a snow leopard gecko here, okay? The snow leopard gecko is not showing any orange, and it's not showing any yellow, or very little. But that is because the snow gene is covering up and dominating the polygenic traits of yellow and orange color that are sprinkled throughout the gecko's DNA. The snow gene dominates that. That's why it's called a dominant gene. When you have a snow gecko, only 50% of the babies are going to be snow. So if the underlying color of that snow gecko is still bright yellow and bright orange, but it's being covered up by the snow gene, whatever babies are snow, they will be light. They're going to be light yellow or light orange. They're not going to be very bright. But whichever babies are not snow, now there's no longer the snow gene dominating their polygenic orange and yellow colorations. So you can have a snow gecko that pops out hyper colorful or very colorful geckos. It just has to be without the snow mutation. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if that doesn't, and I can clarify a little bit more. Oh, Squam, I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, I was really excited about it. I thought it was a really cool video. I really enjoyed dropping it and making it. I had one egg bound once, but after a few weeks and several baths, looks like she absorbed. That's good. That's ultimately what you want. Her temps are normal. She has a humid hide dig. I'm going to try warm baths. She's definitely having trouble, even being a bit vocal. They are infertile eggs. Maybe it's where she's older. Yeah, definitely try the warm baths and let us know how that goes. What's going on, Darian? Oh yeah, this is Friday. No, this is Monday. I am like all over the place. But we'll have to do another stream with Darian. Go ahead and give him a follow, Rodriguez Reptiles. We did a live stream fundraiser for him and his family before in the past. Rodriguez Reptiles has some great variation of amphibians and reptiles that they keep and breed over there. So give his Instagram and Facebook a follow, and feel free to ask him questions if you have questions on tegus, frogs, salamanders, or any kind of reptiles. And we will have you back on, Darian, and do more live streams again. Snows are a great classic leopard gecko. That's why I have a few in my collection here that I plan to breed, because people always want snows, and it's just a great beginner morph. If you watch our beginner morphs video, snow was the #1 recommended beginner morph, because you could have a snow, which takes away some yellow coloration, and then you could have a super snow, which takes away all coloration except black and white, and is really cool. Okay, yeah, no problem, Jim. Glad that you understood that. So just to touch on Jim's topic real quick, check this out. Let me show you guys something cool. So, Jim, this should seal the deal for you on the whole hyper thing that you were talking about. Everybody, look at this leopard gecko. What color do you think it is? What color is this leopard gecko? Okay. I'll look at your comments here because we're a few seconds behind. But this is a yellow leopard gecko with minor hues of orange that is showing. But let me show you the baby that this leopard gecko produced. It is an eclipse. It is an eclipse, and I'm going to get to that in a second. I want to prove a point. I want to show you guys how dominant traits work here. Now take a look at this leopard gecko. What color is this leopard gecko? Or colors. I should brag a little bit and say colors, because this leopard gecko actually has colors of like green and kind of like an orangey red, and then a regular orange on its side. Yeah, this one is really cool. It's called a reverse stripe. Yes, thank you, Darian. This is a tangerine leopard gecko. Can you guess the mom of this leopard gecko? It's this yellow one right here. How could this yellow leopard gecko produce this orange leopard gecko? It ties into what Jim was saying about the snow gene being dominant. Another dominant gene in leopard geckos is actually a recessive gene called the eclipse gene. Whenever you breed the eclipse leopard gecko, which is this right here, the eclipse leopard gecko takes away some pattern, and it creates a shading in the eyes. So the eclipse gene takes away pattern on the gecko, it creates a shading in the eyes of the gecko, but you know what it also does? The eclipse gene minimizes color. It lessens the brightness of the color of the gecko. But, and here's the big but, it does not mean that the color does not exist in the gecko. Let me use the example of, let's say we, I don't know why I'm thinking of this. This is probably not the best example. Maybe some of you guys, yeah, and they do look cross-eyed, but maybe some of you guys will think of a better example. Let's say you have a car that's sitting in your garage, and you cover it with what? I have geckos making a getaway here. And Gecko on my shoulder making a get. Oh, making a getaway. All right. Please forgive me. I need to put these guys away because their tub is kind of shallow. And they're jumping out all over the place. Okay, back to the example. Let's say you have a car that is cherry red, right? What kind of car do you want it to be? If you're old school or new school? My favorite car, just so you guys know, is the 1990s version Mark Anthony 4. Mark Anthony 4 Toyota Supra. That's my favorite car. Some people might like muscle cars, other people might like Corvettes. But let's say you have a bright red cherry car sitting in your garage. What are you going to cover that car with so it's protected? You're going to cover it with a tarp, right? To protect it from dust, anything falling onto it. When someone walks into your garage and looks at your car with the cover on it, let's say the cover is gray, do they say, "Oh, you have a gray car"? No, they want to look under the tarp to see what color car you truly have. And it's similar in leopard geckos. This leopard gecko, at its base core, is really coding, its genetic codes for bright orange. And then you might say, "Frank, why is it not bright orange?" Because it has a tarp over it. And that tarp is this dominating gene that is called the eclipse gene. The eclipse gene covers the natural coloration that the gecko would normally be, and it reduces that coloration, and it makes a couple other modification changes. It makes changes to pattern, and it makes changes to the eye color and the overall eye fill, like how filled in the eyes are. So it does do some pretty cool stuff, but that's why this yellow gecko can actually produce bright orange geckos, because inside of its DNA, underneath that covering of the eclipse gene, if a baby pops out that's not eclipse, like that orange one I showed you is not eclipse, if a baby pops out without the eclipse gene, without that covering, it's just going to be the pure color of whatever the genetics are coding for in that animal. So thank you, Jim. Yeah, I thought that might be a decent example. I was trying to think of something better, but what gene can give leopard geckos intense tangerine shade? So you're going to have to line breed for the most part to get more orange geckos. Watch our videos on line breeding. I have 2 videos on line breeding, a bunch of videos on genetics. I just released a video on advanced morphs, and we talk about line breeding a little bit there. Line breeding is when you take one orange gecko and you breed it to another orange gecko, and then you select and keep back the babies that are most orange and breed them back to other orange geckos. That's called line breeding. Orange to orange to orange to orange, and you get orange, okay? That's the way that you intensify the orange inside of animals, because whenever you breed 2 orange leopard geckos together, you're going to have something called natural variance. For example, what color skin tone do you have? What color skin tone does your mom have? What color skin tone does your siblings have? I would bank to argue, especially if you're an interracial family, that your skin tone is slightly, if not more than slightly, different than your sibling's skin tone, and that is because of natural variance. Now, siblings a lot of times will have similarities, right? But there's something called variance whenever you talk about breeding, and variance is minor or major changes that happen between one sibling to the next. And so in leopard geckos, when you take an orange leopard gecko and breed it to another orange leopard gecko, some of the babies are going to be light orange. Some of the babies will be the same orange as the parents, and some of the babies will be more orange than the parents. That's that natural variation that's going on in line breeding. If you selectively hold back the animals that are most orange and breed them back into your collection, you will continue to enhance those colors. Now, in addition to that, there is a gene, and I'll show you right now. It's called the white and yellow gene. It's a gene that naturally enhances the color of the leopard gecko. All right, so let's see if we can actually show an example of two different kinds of yellow. So this is kind of a normal yellow that you would see in a leopard gecko in the wild. It's just your basic yellow coloration. It's almost kind of even like a darkish yellow coloration, right? When you take the white and yellow gene, which is a dominant gene, and you put it into a leopard gecko, check this out. Bam, look at that. You see how much brighter this leopard gecko is in my left hand here? That's called the white and yellow gene. When you take the white and yellow gene and put it into any combination, it tends to make that combination brighter and more vivid. No, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but watch my most recent video that I just released today. It has and features the white and yellow gene in there and talks about our plans with it and some of the best projects that you could work with it. All right, I'm doing good. When I'm not cleaning, I can actually get to the questions, so. I think I understand your question, Eamon. Eamon asks, can line-bred genes, which are like tangerine or black knight, those are line-bred genes, all black animal, all orange animal. After a generation of breeding, and the line-bred gene was covered up by a dominant gene, like let's say snow, right, or eclipse, can line-bred genes reoccur? The answer is yes. If I'm understanding your question correctly, if you have a leopard gecko that is super bright orange, but its colors are being muted by the eclipse gene or muted by the snow gene, as soon as this gecko has babies with another orange gecko, those babies that are not snow and not eclipse will be just as bright as the under colors of this gecko without the snow or without the eclipse gene. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, Eamon, yes, when you have a leopard gecko, again, remember the car example, okay? This is my fist. What color is my fist? Let's say this represents tangerine inside of leopard gecko, okay? Let's just say, pretend my fist is orange. And then let's say this newspaper represents the genetic coding for the eclipse gene. So now the eclipse gene is sitting on top of my hand. Now what color is my hand? It's no longer orange. It's whatever color the eclipse gene makes it to be, because the eclipse gene is dominating the orange color that is in the gecko. But when the gecko reproduces and produces babies that are not eclipse, so you remove the eclipse gene out of the equation, and now you're left with the bare genetic code of orange in the leopard gecko. So I hope that makes sense. But yes, if you have a dominant gene that's covering up the line-bred genes, as soon as that gecko produces babies, and some of those babies don't have the dominant gene, as long as the spouse, the parent that you bred it to, is good quality, you'll see good quality inside of the babies, you know? The spouse, gecko spouse. I love how I call the gecko mate the spouse. And then when I talk about examples of line breeding, like in human beings, I say stuff like, okay, if you took an American and bred them with an African, you know, the children will come out like a mixed tone color, right? So it's funny the language that I choose to use sometimes, but it's just easy to talk like that, you know? Height in human beings is polygenic. Your height is based off of many genes from your dad that is combined with many genes from your mom, and then a natural variance of when those genes collide, which is why you are a different height than your sibling, you know, is because your parents are passing on slightly different genes to every single child. The same thing happens in leopard geckos. Reptiles pass on slightly different genes to every single baby, you know? Those are called polygenic inheritance, which means multiple, multiple. So babies, huh? Babies. What do we got for babies? I mean, the last couple days I've been showing some babies, but here's a baby that's actually going to get moved to an adult tub soon. I really like the oranges on this gecko. This comes from Inferno and Ron Tremper's Sun Glow line. So it's just a nice bright orange. And then what I personally want to do is, and it looks much better in person too, but what I personally want to do is get geckos that have more reddish coloration to them, you know, and continue to bring out that red, you know. So you can see a little bit more saturation when I hit it from this angle, but like looking at it in person and looking at it on the camera, it's probably, I don't know, a good 1.5 or 2 times like more saturated in person, you know. So we do have blizzard geckos. Let me show you. We actually are breeding Diablo blancos right now. But our female is a late bloomer. Let's see if she's actually... It's been a couple weeks since I checked her for ovulations because she normally ovulates later in the year. So let's see if she is ovulating right now. Ah, darn it. She is not ovulating yet. But this is a Diablo Blanco we have. And her eyes are going to look black right now because she's a little bit in the shade and the light is behind me. But I don't have my flashlight. But if you were to hold her eyes up to... If you were to hold her eyes up to the light, you know, kind of like put her... let's see. Nah, this camera's just, it's just not going to pick it up while we're on the live stream. The live stream camera is not as good as when you're not live streaming. But she does have a ruby red color eye to her. And she is a blizzard, Tremper albino, and eclipse. And her boyfriend, which is also a Diablo Blanco, is a snow giant Diablo Blanco. So I'll show him. Are Bold and Bandit snow? No. Bold is dark black spots, and Bandit is also dark black patterning. That is not what the snow gene is, but some people take the snow gene and breed it into bold lines. So the difference between Diablo Blancos and Blizzards, let me show you. So which one do you think is the natural blizzard? If you said in my left hand, you are correct. In my left hand is the natural look of a blizzard. It's a little bit more gray, sometimes purple, and sometimes a darkish grayish purple like this one is. This one's actually called a midnight blizzard because of how dark it is. How do you go from this to this? You add the albino gene. And then specifically for when you add the albino gene, you'll get a gecko that looks pretty much like this. It'll be like a pinkish white. But then when you add the eclipse gene, it just makes the gecko a little bit more pinkish white. And then it also fills in the solid eye color of the gecko. If you look at that, you can see the gecko's eye color is a solid color. That is characteristic of the eclipse gene. All right, we lost connection there for a second, or I lost connection. So I hope that answers your question. Let me... Yeah, so again, Diablo Blanco has 3 genetics inside of it. Blizzard, Tremper Albino, Eclipse. The regular Blizzard only has 1 of those in it, which is the Blizzard gene. The one that I'm about to show you right now is Blizzard, Tremper Albino, Eclipse, Snow, and Giant. It has 5 genes inside of it, and it's our male. We were actually really fortunate. Ow! Stepped on something sharp. We were really fortunate to get this guy for free from a work friend of mine that also kept geckos, and they were just, her and her boyfriend were just ready to move on. They just had to downsize, and so they spent quite a pretty penny on these 2 and just gave them to me for free. But that's just the benefits of... Oh, you can really see the red eyes there. Did you guys see it there for a second? Let's see if I could get his angle or whatever to hit, but his eyes were really... You could see a little bit of the red. You can see it red right there. That's why they're called the Diablo Blanco. So this guy is Giant Snow Diablo Blanco. Pretty cool guy. How do you know when a female is done laying eggs for the season? So that's actually a really good question, because some females will reabsorb an ovulation and then start ovulating again. So if you happen to look at the female and she's not ovulating, you might think her season's done, but maybe she's going to start ovulating again in a week or in a couple days. And if you put her off to the side and just forget about her, you're going to miss out on her last few clutches or last clutch. So what you want to do is this. This is what I do. When I notice a girl is no longer ovulating, I check for ovulations for girls. I have like a list, right, of girls that are due to lay. And when that list shows me that, hey, this female is due to lay an egg, I go into her container, and if I look and I see, oh, not only does she not have eggs, but she's also not even ovulating. She's not even growing eggs. If that's the case, I will take her off the list. And then when I refresh my list every few days to check for females that are ready, I will keep checking her for about a 1 to 2 week period before I stop checking her. So for about 2 weeks, after I don't see any more ovulations or eggs in her, I'll keep checking her for another 2 weeks. After that 2 weeks is up, if I still don't see any ovulations or any growth or eggs or anything, I will take her off of the expecting females list, and she will no longer get checked until the next year. Does that make sense? Is it normal for breeders to not know hatch dates offhand at expos? Some breeders do not keep track of hatch dates. I just watched the video the other day where a huge leopard gecko breeder was saying how he doesn't think it's important to keep track of hatch dates. So some leopard gecko breeders will not keep track of hatch dates. It just depends on each leopard gecko breeder's personal way of keeping track of the information. As of right now, we keep track of hatch dates. So in my computer, I keep track of when the egg was laid and when the egg hatched, so that I can also tell how many days it took for that egg to hatch. So if the egg was laid here and then it hatched here, I can do the calculations and be like, oh, it hatched in 55 days, or oh, it hatched in 60 days. That's the way that we keep our data over here, for now at least. So I would say, yeah, it's not completely uncommon for breeders to not have that information. It just varies, again, variance from breeder to breeder. Squam says, I have an issue right now where I have a nice male Mac Super Snow. Okay, so a Super Snow, male, Mac Super Snow. But I bought him from a pet store, so I can't be sure of any other genetics. But I also have a Super Raptor, but he shows some Squam, you're going to have to help me with that. Neurology? Neurologi? Not sure what you're trying to say there. Oh, neurological issues. So I'm trying to figure out which one to breed. Any thoughts? Can't be sure. But I also have a So I'm guessing your Super Raptor is a male. Correct me if I'm wrong. Your Super Raptor is a male. And usually Super Raptors don't have neurological issues. Maybe he's also Enigma. Enigma has some neurological issues sometimes with some of the animals more than others. But this, my friend, is completely up to you. If you bred the neurological animal, of course, there's a chance that some of the babies will inherit whatever defects are causing that neurological problem. There's a chance that some of the babies will inherit that. Now, if the Super Raptor did not have a neurological problem, to me it's a no-brainer. Breed the Super Raptor because it's a Super Snow and a Raptor, and so you just have a whole bunch of genes to get into an animal, and to me that's more fun. But you have a little bit of a conundrum, a little bit of a, catch-22 on your hands here, because if you do breed the Super Raptor, there's a small chance that some of the babies will come out with defects. But that doesn't mean they will come out with defects. It just means that there's a chance. Do you find that midnight blizzards quite often have paradox spots? That's actually my first midnight blizzard, but a couple other midnight blizzards that I looked at or that other people talked to me about, they also said that their midnight blizzards did have paradox spots. So maybe it is common of the midnight. I did breed that midnight blizzard to our Black Knight recently, so hopefully we can see what happens with that. But all right. Blizzard is not related to the snow gene. I know it sounds like they would be, snow and blizzard, but they are two completely separate genes located on two separate parts of the gecko's DNA. So, if you're unfamiliar with what chromosomes look like or DNA looks like, a chromosome is genetic traits from your dad, and it sort of works like a ladder. Like it has different areas that line up with your mom's chromosomes. And the blizzard gene, let's just say for example's sake, the blizzard gene is located here at this location. Similar to how you have a street address and I have a street address and our addresses are different. Blizzard is down here and snow, let's say, is up here. They're at different addresses in the gecko's DNA genetic code. So if you took a blizzard leopard gecko, which is down here, let's say it's only blizzard, and you bred it to a snow leopard gecko, as you see, the addresses don't line up. So you need the snow to line up with the snow, and you need the blizzard to line up with the blizzard. You know what I mean? For you to have two copies of each of those genes. They're just located at different parts of the gecko's DNA. Let's put it that way. Janelle asks, how long does start of ovulation to laying take? So, at the beginning of season, if my girl started ovulating today, I would breed her today. If I have a successful breeding today, the ovulations will turn into eggs within 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, I will check and look for eggs in her tub. If she laid eggs, she will lay another set of eggs 2 weeks after that. Now, there is a little bit of play room with the amount of time that goes by. For example, it might be 3 weeks. And if it goes any longer than 4 weeks, your gecko is showing signs of what's called egg bound, meaning that the eggs are stuck inside of her body. And what you need to do is just hope and pray that she either passes those eggs or that she reabsorbs them into her body so that life can move on. Because if she does not pass the eggs and does not reabsorb them, worst case scenario, she could die. Because the eggs will just like rot inside of her and wind up, who knows what, causing bacterial, causing explosions inside of her gut, causing her to stress out and not eat, and you know what I mean? Like, all kinds of bad stuff can happen. So I don't mean to scare you. It's not super common for girls to be egg bound, But I had a girl that was egg bound last year for 5 months and then finally passed the egg. Whew, thank the Lord, you know? And then this year, I have 2 girls that are egg bound right now, and they're both going on about 3 to 4 months. And I'm really getting concerned about them because one of them is super skinny and won't pass the egg, and her tail is withering away, and she's not eating, but there's nothing that I know that I can do, okay? But some egg-bound girls will pass the eggs or reabsorb the eggs at about 1 to 2 months. But if it goes longer than that, now you're starting to get into the danger zone of potential risk, you know? But to answer your question, most geckos will lay every 2 to 3 weeks. So Jameson asks, what kind of gene is bold, bandit? Bold and bandit are not recessive. They're not dominant. They're not codominant. And they're not incomplete dominant. All of these genes are called Mendelian genetics. Mendelian genetics says that the genes are located at one specific point on the chromosomes of the leopard gecko. Though that's what Mendelian genetic breeding is. So it's very easy, Mendelian genetic, because it's only one gene located at one location on the gecko's chromosomes in their genetic code. But bold, tangerine, bandit, Halloween mask, black knight, bold stripe, all of those are something called line-bred traits. Line-bred traits are located on multiple areas of the gecko's DNA. So let's just use this as an example. This area right here is where the snow gene is. The gecko either has it or it doesn't have it. See that? Has it or it doesn't have it based on whether it inherits it at that specific location on the gecko's DNA. But the bold project is a polygenetic trait, which is line-bred, meaning that poly, meaning more than one, the way that the animal looks is influenced by more than one gene or more than one location on the gecko's DNA. So the bold effect of the leopard gecko is, let's just say, influenced by these 3 locations on the gecko's genetic code. Okay? That's what line breeding is. That's what polygenetic breeding is. And if the gecko inherits 2 of those locations, but not one of them, it might be less pattern than if it inherits all 3 of those locations to give it a certain look. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Junior's Geckos, what is going on, my man? Asks, what do you think about this? I paired a blizzard to a blizzard and hatched a red-eyed Diablo Blanco, but can't brand that because parents were sold to me without hets. Okay, so here's what I think about that. First of all, there's a lot of purists out there that say that you should not breed geckos whose genetics you don't know. But we are forgetting as a hobby where all genetics came from. All genetics, every single genetic that exists that we play around with, came from animals that looked completely normal, that either did not have any genetic mutations in their DNA, and then it spontaneously occurred, because mutations can spontaneously occur. They could occur because of environmental situations. Environmental situations can cause mutations. Inheritance can cause mutations. meaning that parent to child passes it on, and spontaneity can cause mutations. So everyone out there that's like, don't breed geckos whose genetics you don't know, we are forgetting as a whole that at some point in the past, every single known genetic came from unknown genetics, spontaneity, inheritance, environmental changes. So it's more common, Junior, that even though the geckos were sold to you as non-hets, it's more common that they probably did inherit the eclipse and the Tremper gene, and they were both het for eclipse and het for Tremper. It's more statistically likely that that was the case instead of a spontaneous mutation occurring. Because the question is, can a gecko spontaneously develop the eclipse gene? Can it spontaneously develop the Tremper albino gene? The answer is yes. That's how it happened in the past. So it could happen again in the present. But the chances of that happening are much, much smaller than you being sold a gecko that the owner was not aware of was actually het. So my thought, Junior, instead of it being spontaneity happening in your genes, I think it was inheritance. I think that the person that sold you the geckos, they did not know that the geckos were het for eclipse and Tremper albino. Very good question, though. Squam, what do you think the coolest pairs with a pure black knight would be? Squam, you got to watch my recent video. I just dropped it today. But since you guys are here in the live stream, I'm not going to hold out on you. I'll tell you exactly what I covered in the video. Here's what we're planning to do with the Black Knight gene. We're going to pair Black Knight to Black Knight so that we can continue to enhance the richness of Black Knight. But because Black Knight is so inbred for the last 12 to 13 years, we also want to diversify the bloodlines and get it into other projects. We want to put it into Tangerine. We want to put it into White and Yellow. We want to put it into Snow. We want to put it into subspecies like Fasciolatus and Turkmenicus. We want to put it into the Giant gene so that we can create Black Knight Giants. But one of my most anticipated and favorite anticipated projects for the Black Knight gene is the Afghanicus leopard gecko. And you have to watch my most recent video. I show examples, but the Afghanicus leopard gecko is a subspecies of leopard gecko that can be bred with the Black Knight leopard gecko, and it is very, very dark naturally. So when you take an animal that is naturally very, very dark and you breed it to an animal that has been selectively bred to be very, very dark, I think that's a great remedy for success right there. We do breed ball pythons, and we have a pretty big collection of puzzle ball pythons. The puzzle gene, I think, is gearing up to be a contender against clown. Anyone who knows about ball pythons knows that clown has ruled the world for the last 20 years, however long it's been around. It's ruled the world. But there's only so many combinations you can make with something, right? The cool thing about ball pythons, a lot of spontaneous mutations occur, so new genes are constantly popping up, but also they just have dozens and dozens more genetic mutations than leopard geckos have, so there's always something to do. But I think a lot of the best stuff for clown has already been discovered and kind of has already been pioneered, right? But the puzzle gene is so new and it has such a great opportunity to be pioneered. We invested heavily into the puzzle project, and the puzzle project is a pattern mutation on the snake that makes it look like it has puzzle pieces connecting and linked up in its outer display, in the way the animal looks. And so you could add pattern changers and color changers to the puzzle gene, and I think that that's going to be one of the biggest projects over the next few years. We also breed ribbon snakes. I just got 3 ribbon snake babies. We also breed Dumerils boas. We have 4 Dumerils baby boas this year that will, 2 of them at least will be looking for new homes here soon. We do not breed hognose snakes. maybe in the future. But I have chosen the projects that we focus on are black and white Tegus and red Tegus, puzzle ball pythons, leopard geckos, crested and gargoyle geckos, ribbon snakes, and I have some savanna monitors that I'm going to try to breed over the next year or so. Can you breed a red stripe to bold stripe and is already a morph or design? Yeah, so the red stripe project, I'm trying to find out more about this project because there's technically 2 definitions to the red stripe project right now. The red stripe project has 2 main definitions that you see. One definition is, and it might be easier just to show this to you, but so one definition is line bred traits to where instead of black stripes, the gecko would have orangey red stripes in those locations because, and what makes up that genetics exact code, I'm not exactly sure, but what I think it is it's a combination of tangerine and albino and selective breeding. But I'm trying to actually find out the answer to this because I've seen people call red stripes 2 different things. Geckos that are like this, that have orange stripes down the sides, and then geckos that are like this. And it's a little more difficult to tell, but down the middle of this gecko's back is 2 red stripes that are straddling the gecko's spine. That also has been called red stripe. Now, actually, I think the red stripe might have something to do with the reverse stripe, because check this out. So the reverse stripe, simply put, is when a gecko has a stripe down the middle of the back. Pretty easy to understand, right? You guys see that stripe down the middle of the back? That breaks up the color of the leopard gecko's pattern so that on one side of the stripe you have orange, on the other side you have orange, and then down the middle you have a greenish coloration. Well, in time, that greenish coloration is actually going to blend in with the gecko's back as a whole. It's going to blend in with the gecko's orange natural coloration. So maybe, just maybe, and then what you're going to be left with, you know, let's say the gecko's back was, whoa, look at that. That was a nice jump for a leopard gecko. That's usually a crested gecko trait right there. But let's say the gecko has like a yellowish tone to him, then that means that, I don't know, to be honest. I got to find out more about the line bred aspect of red stripe and how exactly people have created it. But from what I see in my collection, red stripe can pop up spontaneously from hypo lines, because we popped up that last red stripe that I showed. We popped up that red stripe from a super hypo and then a normal pattern. Super hypo and a normal pattern popped up a gecko that has 2 red stripes going down the center of its back. That might be influenced by some genetics in the history of that leopard gecko's DNA. But the other definition that I see people talk about all the time is actual line breeding, meaning that they're taking geckos that have orange stripes and breeding them to other geckos that have orange stripes. But my question to that is, what made the official first orange stripe leopard gecko? That I need to actually find out a little bit more information on. But essentially, when you have a bold striped gecko, all it is pattern down the sides of its lateral sides down there and no pattern down the middle. So yeah, if you had a red striped gecko that had no pattern down the middle, but then it had pattern down the sides, and then you took a bold striped gecko that has no pattern down the middle, and then pattern down the sides, I would definitely say there's a chance of overlapping to have, you know, to create geckos that are bold stripe. But at the same time, the red stripe is not exactly... Okay, let me see if I can explain this. In the leopard gecko's DNA... Actually, this is a good way. Think of a car, right? Any of you guys ever play race car games? When you have a racing car game, you choose the color of the car, and then you choose the decals that you want to put on it, right? So let's say you have a bright orange car. That doesn't mean the orange car is going to have stripes on it. It just means that you have a base orange car. To get stripes on that orange car, you have to add it or modify it in there. And so the bold stripe project is an actual modification of pattern, meaning that you're taking decals that are not normal and you are selectively breeding geckos that have black stripes down the side. That's the pattern. That's the pattern of the gecko laid on top of the color. But what I think is going on in the red stripe line bred gecko, what I think going on is that it's a mashing of two color palettes being put on top of each other and not necessarily a pattern palette, because the pattern of the leopard gecko is located in black coloration. So check this out. Any of you guys who remember the earliest pictures of this leopard gecko, it was born with a black stripe down its back, a jet black stripe. Well, what color does that stripe turn as time goes on? It first turns purple, and then it turns green, and then it blends in with the color of the gecko's body once it's older. It kind of blends in and becomes like, almost like blends in and becomes the same as the skin tone. So the red stripe project, from what I've seen, the line bred part, it has no melanism to it. It has no darkness to it. It's just color on top of color. So in the same way that this leopard gecko has a striped look to it only because of that black stripe that is now disappearing. You know what I mean? So it's kind of becoming a color palette that is disappearing. But when you look at red stripe leopard geckos, their stripes are actually orange. Their stripes are not black and their stripes are not green. So I think, based off of the example I'm giving here and from what I've seen in the past, I think that it's not the pattern, the decals of the gecko that's actually changing, but it's layers of color. Like if you see this, this is just two layers of color, one color down the back that is dividing the color palette of this gecko, giving the appearance or the illusion of stripes. When you look at the bold stripe project, that's no illusion. It's an actual yellow gecko with black stripes. The black is the pattern. The black is the decals. Okay, so in leopard geckos, there's pattern and there's base color. I think the red stripe project somehow is more tied into the eclipse gene, and it's tied into overlapping tones of color, versus the bold stripe project is tied into a change of pattern, an actual decal mutation, or, you know, decal selective variance. And then there's also the random red stripes that occur that I showed you earlier, to where the geckos actually have stripes down the middle of the back. And so I've also seen that called the red stripe. And that's why it's so difficult, because right now the red stripe is kind of classified as two different things. So, Zuli, my gecko has laid one egg twice already. Is it normal for them to lay only... Yeah, that can happen. Sometimes geckos will only have one ovulation pass. Sometimes they only have one ovary, or like, you know, whatever it is that's producing the egg. They only have one of those. Genetically, they just, you know, they didn't produce that. It didn't develop, you know what I mean? Similar to how some females, you know, some females only have one ovary or whatever. I'm not like a medical expert, guy, so I don't know like the completeness of what I'm saying, but I know I've heard stuff similar to this where like a female human being will only be producing one egg every month instead of like two. You know what I mean? Same thing can happen with leopard geckos. So Jay Harris says, I just had an adult female defecate and her feces were brown and light green. I've never seen this before. If her tail is... So the color of feces is influenced by diet change. If you changed food, it might change the color of the feces of the gecko. Because the gecko's natural stomach bacteria that's breaking down those foods and stomach acids and all that kind of stuff, they all work together. And if you introduce a new food item that the bacteria is not used to, it takes a second for the bacteria to get used to it and the stomach juices and all that, for it to break it down and for it to look normal. So that's option number one. Option number two is parasites. Parasites also cause a change in the color of the poo. Not every parasite is bad or deadly to leopard geckos, and some parasites are actually thought to be pretty bioactive and just natural inside of the gecko's system. And then the really bad parasite is called cryptosporidiosis or cryptosporidium. As far as it goes right now, this parasite is uncurable and will kill most geckos because the gecko will not be able to absorb any nutrients and the parasite will eat all of the gecko's nutrients. So, all of that being said, if the gecko looks healthy, if you haven't changed its diet, sometimes female leopard geckos that are producing eggs, whatever chemical reactions are going on inside of their body, sometimes those chemical reactions wind up causing green poo every once in a while. But if the gecko is always pooping green consistently for like a couple weeks to a month, then you might want to consider a parasite test. They're very expensive. If you go to the vet, it's a few $100s, but you can run your own parasite test if you have a cheap microscope. And if you go to beardeddragon.co, go to beardeddragon.co, they have information of what parasites are deadly and what parasites look like what under a microscope. And you just have to buy their microscope parasite test kit, and you can actually test the poo of your own leopard gecko for free, you know? So, I would say most of the time, it's nothing to worry about. But keep an eye on it, and if the problem persists, then you'll want to take it to a vet to get a fecal exam or do your own fecal exam, you know? Raising Zoe. Gecko Ace, spontaneous mutation is also why we have 3 different albino genes. Correct. All 3 albino genes are located at different areas of the gecko's genetic code. That's why you can't take a Tremper albino, which is up here, and you can't breed it with the rainwater albino, which is down here, and produce albinos. Because if you take a Tremper dad and you take a rainwater mom, their DNA code is not matching up at that location. You see? It has to match up. What's going on, Zoe? Rob S., how many days do you think my temperature spec female eggs would hatch? At 81 degrees, I would say they would hatch between 55 to 60 days. Squam, do you think it will be difficult to make a giant black knight due to the size differences? I do not think it will be difficult to make a giant black knight. It will just take time because black knight is a line bred trait. So if I take a giant leopard gecko that has no extra blackness to them, and then I breed it with a if I breed it to a black knight leopard gecko, the babies are only going to be half dark because only one parent is passing on the black genes, which is multiple black genes, and the other parent is passing on no black genes in the same areas that this gecko is passing on black genes. So it's going to take a few generations of inbreeding and crossbreeding back to each other to create bigger and darker geckos, but that's where selective breeding comes into play. We'll take a black knight, breed it to a giant. We'll breed the babies that are the biggest and the blackest, the biggest and the blackest to each other, and we'll continue to breed them back to each other, back to back to back to back. As far as your size difference question goes, that's a very good point. I've taken big males and paired them with small females. It happens. Sometimes there's a little bit of an issue of positioning, and sometimes that can even happen if the gecko has a really big, luscious, voluptuous tail. You know, I have a black knight that has a big tail, and I try to breed him to a blizzard that has a huge tail, and he would just have a difficult time sliding his tail under hers, and they were the same body size, but the tails stopped them. So yes, sometimes size can impede or give problems to breeding, but for the most part, no. You could take a big male and breed it to a small female, and you could take a small female and breed it to a big male. That will be okay. If you actually look at water dragons, the female will be like 8 feet long and like 100 pounds. And then the male is like 4 feet long and like 30 pounds. It's a huge difference. And you're just like, what is going on? Or it's opposite. The female might be, I think the female is the bigger one. Don't quote me on it, but I believe the female is the bigger one. Or the, now I'm trying to think. If one of you has the ability to look it up, let me know. But in water dragons, the monitor, not water dragons, sorry, water monitor lizards, water monitors, which are sometimes called dragons because they're so big. One of the sexes is, one of the genders is really big and the other one is really small. And in the reptile world, that doesn't seem to make that big of a difference. The same with ball pythons. You'll have a ball python that is 500 grams and you could breed it to a ball python that is 1,500 grams. 3 times its size, and it works out, you know. All the male has to do is drizzle the sperm into her cloaca area, and that's it. I mean, the sperm is the same size. It's all, the sperm is the same size, you know what I mean? As long as the sperm gets in the female, she has what she needs to make babies. So, juiced. Can you use a wine cooler as an incubator? Yes. And today my gecko vomited and there were mealworms along with this yellow. Vomit can be caused by parasites or lack of heat. Make sure your heat is working. And if the gecko continues to vomit, then you'll need to check for parasites. You'll need to do your own poop fecal exam, or you'll need to take it to a vet to do a fecal exam to possibly treat it for parasites. Or you could just let it, as long as the gecko is healthy and not showing any signs of extreme weight loss, you could just let it try to cure itself on its own. Which is typically, that's what my first reaction is, I just let the animals try to cure itself on its own. If there's any home remedies that I can do to assist with that, then I might. But in your situation, heat, heat, heat. Make sure that gecko has 90 to 95 degrees hot spot to digest its food. What's going on, Esteban? Andreas, what do you think are the best morphs to breed together so we can get the most cool and bright, colorful babies? Tangerine and white and yellow produce some of the most brightest babies. And also, line breeding tangerines for brightness produces some of the best babies. Line breeding white and yellow geckos produces some of the best babies because the white and yellow gene has high green coloration and high yellow coloration inside of that bloodline naturally. So even geckos that are not white and yellow still kind of pop out with very nice tones of yellow. And this can also happen in the Bold Stripe project. So in the Bold Stripe project, you have geckos that are just very nice yellow, Like, look at that yellow. That's just very clean and crisp and clear coloration. And that's just line breeding, selectively breeding. The Geckos over the years has produced a line where some bold stripes are very, very clean. So if you want the most colorful geckos, definitely white and yellow, definitely tangerine, and you also might want to consider the bold stripe project. I do not recommend a humidifier for leopard geckos unless you do not have a humid hide. Leopard geckos do not need that much humidity to shed. As long as the leopard gecko has a humid hide, a place to retreat to that is more moist than the rest of its environment, you will be perfectly fine. In addition to that, leopard gecko babies are extremely sensitive to humidity. So make sure without a shadow of a doubt that your babies have a humid hide. Season is going great, Q. Thank you for asking. With the Black Knights. So we are just now beginning to get some eggs and some fertile eggs with our Black Knights. It's been a little bit of a late start, right? Most geckos are breeding in January. We are just now beginning to get eggs in May, 5 months later from our Black Knights. So I don't know if I'm catching them at the end of their season and when they were shipped, maybe that threw off their biological senses and it delayed their breeding season, or in the worst case scenario, it stopped their breeding season, and then I'm catching the end of their breeding season right now. Like, it restarted their breeding season, but towards the end. So more updates to come, but right now we are getting gravid Black Knight girls. We have 5 Black Knight girls that are continuously gravid for us, and not all of the eggs are fertile, but it's the same with any leopard gecko. Not all their eggs are fertile. So keep asking me. Keep me on my toes, up to date with that. I will let you know how many fertile eggs that we're having from the Black Knights. It looks like, off the top of my head, I think we have like 6 fertile eggs from Black Knights right now, and they're still making more eggs as the weeks are going on. We are a distributor of heat tape. We get our heat tape from the Bean Farm, so you could go to thebeanfarm.com. We use FlexWatt heat tape. It is the American branded, the only American branded and made heat tape that has an extra layer of plastic on it to make it more flame resistant and safer compared to the cheaper stuff that comes from overseas and is manufactured overseas. Okay? That being said, GeekyGeckoCreations is now a distributor of the #1 world's most American-made, safest heat tape. So if you need heat tape, we have 3-inch heat tape and we have 4-inch heat tape available. 3-inch is good for babies, 4-inch is great for adults, and we sell it by the foot. We match the Bean Farm's prices. So if you go to thebeanfarm.com, you could order from them or you could order from us. Just let me know. Message me privately if you want to order from us. A heat pad or a heat lamp should not make a big difference, Juice, as long as their belly is touching a surface that can get 90 to 95 degrees. In this room right now, we are actually not running any heat tape. All of our heat tape is currently off because you could see that little thing right there is called a room heater. Some of you guys might know this. If you can use a room heater like that, it's like 30, 40 bucks. And you could heat your whole room to 90 degrees. So this whole room right now is, well, it's 86 degrees right now, but as I turn it on, it's going to become 90 degrees overnight. And then I keep the vent closed and I open the blinds during the day so that the greenhouse effect lets in sunlight, it heats up this room, and it stays 90 degrees all day long. As long as your leopard gecko is exposed to 6 to 10 hours of 90 degrees heat, you're perfectly fine. Whether that's under the tank heat, over the tank heat, or ambient room heat. The rest of the time, as long as you don't go below 70 to 75, you should be fine. Okay? Yeah, I do that too sometimes, Jay Harris. We unfortunately had a gecko pass away over here, and I don't think it was from crypto. I think it was from stress during the breeding season. And you know, I'm always preaching how I try to let geckos heal themselves naturally, right? But this leopard gecko, time went on, it would not eat. And it reabsorbed its eggs. It would not eat. And I should have assist feeded it earlier. I started assist feeding it a week ago, and the gecko passed away. I'm so sad. But I threw away all that gecko stuff. Any tub that gecko was in, anything that gecko touched, because if it was crypto, the bad, deadly parasite, crypto is almost impossible to kill. I think you could kill it with like hydrogen peroxide, but even bleach won't kill crypto, the parasite. So the parasite, the eggs of the parasite will live on plastic or on surfaces, and then it could get in and contaminate other geckos. So I threw her tub away. I threw everything away just to be safe. I don't think it was crypto, but just to be safe, I did. Cords, would you quit breeding? Would you quit breeding just black knights and could breed anything else for 100K? Cords, I'm a little confused by the question. Can you rephrase that? Would you quit breeding just black knights? Or maybe are you asking if I would just breed black knights? Cords, rephrase that question if you don't mind for me. I'm going to hit some of these other questions. Andreas. Did you mean... So, Andreas, watch our most recent video. I just dropped it today. It talks about the white and yellow and the tangerine. But here's what you want to do. You want to take the tangerines and you want to create more and more and more tangerines that are brighter and brighter and brighter. You want to take the white and yellows and you want to keep breeding them to each other until you get brighter and brighter and better looking white and yellows. Or breeding them to other leopard geckos that you have. Keep breeding the white and yellow gene and creating the best variations of white and yellow. Then you will take the two and combine them. Because when you take the best white and yellow and you breed it with the best tangerine, that will produce the best white and yellow tangerines. Hope that answered your question. Okay, so yeah, then the male water monitor is the big one that's like 8 feet long and like 100 pounds. And the female is tiny, 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 tiny. She's like 3-4 feet long and like 30 pounds. It is crazy. And you would think that this wouldn't be possible, but it is. Whatever they do, their private parts and stuff, they do what they do. Like I said, the male, I was reading recently how the male's sperm, you know, the hemipene comes out and the male's sperm, like a funnel, drizzles down the outside of the hemipene into the female's cloaca. So technically, she just needs to receive a little bit of that liquid, a little bit of that sperm, and you're good to go. Obviously, the more sperm she has, the better for producing eggs, but... Yeah, sometimes, for example, we took our geckos to a school, and we did a school event recently. I came back home and 2 of the geckos vomited because when we went to the school, it was only like 70 degrees in the classroom, right? And so the geckos did not have, and the geckos ate the night before, so they did not have the appropriate temperature all of those hours that we were at the school for like 5 hours, they didn't have the temperature they needed to digest. So right after the leopard gecko eats, it should have access to heat for about, I want to say a 10 to 12 hour period of where it can get to a spot that's like 90 degrees, 88 to 90 degrees, and you'll be good. That is a really good hypothetical, Cord. So you're asking me if somebody offered me right now $100,000 to stop breeding black knights, would I do it? Or would I reject it and keep breeding black knights? What do you think? What do you guys think? I am curious. I will answer the question for you. I would reject it because I'm learning very quickly, especially in the reptile hobby. First of all, it's a passion and a joy to be able to create art around reptiles in colors and patterns and different combinations and mutations. I don't know if any amount of money in the world could make me give that up because I enjoy it so much. Second of all, 30 years from now, hypothetically, if things go well, 30 years from now, we might have made more than $100,000 off of the Black Knight project. We might have made $1 million off of the Black Knight project. You know, it is a high dollar project. These leopard geckos, they produce eggs every year, you know, Lord willing. They're animals, they produce every year, and there's customers every year. So as long as you can sell the animals, which Black Knights are selling pretty good right now, there's a lot of people that are interested in them. I think you can very easily make over 100 grand for that project, you know, within 10 to 20 years. Yeah, kind of, sort of. I mean, the leopard gecko world is not as high dollar as the ball python world. Let me say this. The average leopard gecko keeper is comfortable spending $200 to $300. Think about this. You probably have geckos that you spent $200 to $300 for. I have geckos that I've spent $200 to $300 for. I've never spent... no, that's a lie. Yeah, no. I was going to say I never spent over $300 for a gecko, but any gecko that is more than $300, you really, really have to think hard about. In the ball python world, people barely bat an eye at spending $2,000 to $3,000. It is common in the ball python world for average keepers like you and I, or like yourself, like non-breeders, right? Like I'm a breeder over here. Maybe you guys have some small projects, or maybe you're just like starting off your collection. It is common for smaller breeders and just your average ball python people in the ball python world for them to spend $2,000 to $3,000 per snake and buy a few snakes per year. Very different market. Leopard gecko world, $200 to $300 average. Ball python world, $2,000 to $3,000 average for the top projects. And you know what I mean? So in the ball python world, people can generate that cash flow a lot quicker than in the leopard gecko world. Even if you sell Black Knights at $1,500 each, let's say you sold 10 Black Knights at $1,500 each every single year for the next 10 years. Let's just say, I mean, that's a lot, right? But let's just say you're able to do that. 10 Black Knights, $1,500. That is $15,000 per year that you're making from 10 Black Knights. $15,000 times 10 years is $150,000. So it is plausible that yes, within 10 years, you can make more than 100 grand off of your Black Knight projects, especially if you're selling more than 10 per year. But over the next 10 years, the price is also going to drop. Right now, Black Knight babies are $1,500. Couple years from now, they might be $1,000, meaning you have to sell more to get to that $150,000 valuation that you originally made from the start. So, really cool, hypothetical, appreciate it. Andres, about how many generations do you think I'll need to breed them to get the best colors possible? Good question. 5 to 10 generations. Excuse me. I mean, it really doesn't take much. If you have an orange leopard gecko and you breed it to another orange leopard gecko, some of the babies will be less orange than the parents. Some of them will be the same orange as the parents. Others of them will be more orange than the parents. Okay? Hold back all of those babies. Hold them all back. Do not sell any and produce all females. Okay? Produce all females this year. Produce all females next year. And then in year 3, produce males. So you'll have 2 generations of all females, 1 generation of all males. Or you can incubate a couple eggs towards the end of the season as males. But you want to have more females because females are the ones that make eggs. Okay? So instead of buying 10 tangerine females for $300 each, that would be $3,000. Just breed 1 female that you spend $300 on and incubate all of her babies to be female. Incubate them at 79 to 80 degrees to all be female. And then purchase a really nice male. Or the next season, breed for a really nice male. And take your nicest male and breed him to all of those females. And you're going to get some nice stuff. Okay? So, take a nice orange female, a nice orange male, and incubate all female babies in year 1. All females. The next year, incubate all males. The year after that, incubate all females. Now, you will have a great variety of high-quality females, and that year that you incubated all males, the statistical odds of you popping out some great quality males from that are very good. And in year 3 or 4, you can take 5 males and breed them to 30 females. Does that make sense? Or 50 females, however many females you were able to produce from those 2 seasons. That's the way that I got my project started over here. So thank you, Gecko Aces. Yeah, puzzle projects should definitely be fun. Yeah, in the most recent video, we did show an emerine leopard gecko. The white and yellow has some green coloration to it. And you could see some green coloration in this leopard gecko. If you look at this leopard gecko's head, you could see some green tones, or at least I think you can. It's better in person to see. But when this guy was a juvenile, when I bought him, he had a lot of green contrast. And he had nice orange color. So I took him and I purchased a female that was tangerine, albino, and just pure orange. So I took a male that was green and orange, and I bred it to a female that was pure orange. And now all of our babies come out with nice emerine colors. Now, also, there are some lines of white and yellow that exude green characteristics. So you can see the top of this leopard gecko's head here has green hues and coloration to it. And some of his body is a little bit limey green, lime green / yellow. Now, when we've been breeding this guy, because he has green in his coloration, a lot of his babies are beginning to inherit green as well. So, Andreas, if you're on a budget, all you need is one great quality female. I would spend like $300 to $400 on a female, and then I would equally spend, well, let's just say this. I would spend $200 to $400 on a female, and I would spend $200 to $400 on a male. Get colors and quality that you're happy with. And then, in year number 1, breed the male to the female and incubate for all females. You might get 6 or you might get 8 female babies out of that pairing. Let's just say you get 8 babies that are all female. The next year, you will take that same female and you will take those 8 baby females and you will breed your one male back to all 9 of those geckos. Now, I guess maybe for 2 of those geckos, you could incubate all males. And for the other 7 geckos, you'll incubate all females. So that in year 3, the following year, you will have some males to choose from. You'll have some males that are better than other males. And you'll have a good stock of them. But you'll have an extremely amazing stock of females. You always want more females than males. You probably, if I had to guess, you probably want a 1 to 10 ratio of males to females, okay? So you want 10 great quality females for every 1 great quality male. That would be like ideal, okay? But you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. What if this one male does not breed? Or what if he has problems? So you need to be aware of that. And in the beginning stages of breeding, that's why you want to select off some other males. And you want to continue breeding males to a certain degree because you want better and better and better males. But you don't need as many of them. You need a lot of females. You don't need a lot of males. But if you took the male and bred him to 2 females, that's 16 babies that you have a chance to knock out better colors than the original dad. And so whenever you're creating males, you still want high numbers if possible, because that will give you the best results for getting the best colored males. Because there's always a little bit of variance. Some males are going to be less colorful. Other males will be the same as the dad. Other males will be better than the dad. So sell off all the males you don't need or just keep them as backups and then use the best color males to breed to all of those females that you've been stockpiling, you know? Jay Harris, did Black Knight Leopard Geckos come from Black Pearl? No, they came from a guy in the Netherlands called Black Knight Leopard Gecko. That's his group on Facebook. He doesn't even speak English. If you go to Luna Gecko's YouTube page, he actually did an interview with Echo Geckos, who's also from like that Finland, Netherlands area. Him and the original Black Knight breeder, they have some of the best Black Knights in the world, as well as Asia. Asia has some great Black Knights. And now here in America, we're also starting to get some Black Knights because we are they're becoming more available here for people to work with. Yeah, Black Pearls is not that popular. Carbon is not that popular. Those are other 2 blackish, like melanistic lines. Black Knight, by a long shot, is way more popular and better than those other 2 lines at this moment, as far as quality of darkness is concerned. Now, does that mean that it's not a bad idea to breed a black knight to a black pearl? No, that's actually a good idea. But if you had to invest in one or the other, you're probably going to find darker and better quality animals in the Black Knight project right now. Do you know anyone who has high quality colorful tangerines or white and yellow? Yes. Urban Gecko. Another breeder, Suburban Gecko. Urban Gecko is different than Suburban Gecko. They both have great quality animals. Only Tangs has great quality animals. Gecko Boa has great quality animals. Geckos, etc. has great quality animals. JMG Reptile has great quality animals. These are just some of the breeders I've known over the years. Geckopia has great quality animals. Luna Gecko has great quality animals. We do too, but we're not selling any geckos this year. I'm part of that hold back strategy like I was just explaining right now. I'm holding back all of our babies that we're incubating for females, like 100 something babies, so that we could hopefully have like 800 to 1,000 babies next year. But so Ron Tremper in his book actually mentioned how he bred one male to over 50 females in a season. That I would not recommend right off the bat, because I think that's a little bit overwork, and you might not be able to rely on the sperm that much. But I'm definitely comfortable with one male to 10 females. And then also repairing that male as many times, repairing that male every other clutch or as often as needed. You know, that's kind of what I do. Would you think an all yellow gecko, including the tail, would be sought after? Absolutely, but I've never seen that before. An all yellow tail is something that I've never seen before. So that's pretty interesting. There's an all orange tail, right? But for whatever reason, the genetic code on the animal will allow black and orange into the tail, but not really, and white, but not really yellow at this time, you know? So I definitely think that would be sought after if it was possible. Is it possible to have a blue Leo? As of right now, there are some qualities of purple inside of a leopard gecko. Let me show you. This, and again, guys, I gotta plug it. You have to watch my most recent video that I just dropped today. After this live stream, watch it. This is a fasciolatus leopard gecko. As you can see, it has bluish, purplish colors to its bands right there. Now, there is no all blue or all purple leopard gecko, with the exception of the blizzard, which kind of comes out like purplish sometimes. But I think if you take geckos like this that have higher concentrations of lighter pigments like purple and bluish colors, especially like around the eyes, this one, you can't see too much of the eyes, but right around the eyes is blue. Hi, sweet boy. The more you do that and breed that out, the more you can continue to enhance those purplish colors. But as of right now, there really isn't like a blue leopard gecko. I'm going to start with one more first. Should I start with tangerines or white and yellow? I would start with tangerines. Get your tangerines going. Get a high quality male tangerine, a high quality female tangerine. Like, really, think about this for a second. That's all you need to invest in. So pick as high quality of a male as you can, and pick as high quality of a female as you can. And then from that point forward, you're going to self-produce all the rest of your tangerines. So purchase good quality from the start so that you can make good quality, you know? I'll see you, Cords. Glad you had a good time. We use 12-quart tubs for adults, 6-quart for babies. Yeah, try to see if you could find a, what's the name? Try to see if you could find a, I feel like this gecko farted. It's weird. It didn't poo on me or anything. But try to see if you could find an emerine gecko. Andreas, which breeder should I contact first? Who has the best? So this is tough because some breeders put up really good photos. The photos look amazing. But then you ask them for other photos, or they take photos in different lighting and it winds up not being as bright. Okay, here's my answer. If you're going to invest in tangerine leopard geckos, I would check out Urban Gecko, who's in Canada. Check out his collection. He has some amazing looking tangerine leopard geckos, but sometimes they look better in some pictures compared to other pictures. For example, he has something called the Tangerine Tornado, which is an amazing looking leopard gecko in some pictures. Then you will see the Tangerine Tornado leopard gecko advertised in other pictures, and it looks 2 times less good than this other picture. So pictures can be a little bit deceiving, but be careful. I still think the Tangerine Tornado is a great line from Urban Gecko. The other line that I would focus on is from Only Tangs. It's a company called Only Tangs, and he only breeds tangerines, and he has something called the Red Diamond, which is just a great quality orange tangerine leopard gecko. I would start with those 2 breeders, Urban Gecko and Only Tangs. And then message me privately if you can't find them. But also look on Morph Market, because on Morph Market, you can look for a tangerine leopard gecko and you might find some really good quality stuff from just some average breeders or lower named breeders. Excuse me. That was rude. I'm sorry. I got to get going. My throat is done. The Urban Reptile does seem to have better looking pictures than in real life. They are a little less of that vibrant orange. Yeah, so Cords, I don't know if you have gotten a gecko from Urban Geckos, but that's my fear of buying from them right now, is that the pictures look so amazing, and I think there's a little bit of color saturation at play. Even if he did not purposely manipulate the photo, sometimes the lighting, whether it's darker lighting or lighter lighting, will change the color of the gecko. And in darker lighting, orange geckos look better. So, Urban Gecko, I asked for a different picture, looks completely different. Yeah, so ask the breeder for other pictures. Send me, Andreas, send me what you're thinking of, but start with Only Tangs. He's a guy named Barry. He's got some great quality stuff. Again, some pictures look better than in real life, I believe, but he's an American company, and he focuses on tangerines. Also, Gecko Daddy. Gecko Daddy, I think, has some great stuff. Thank you, Floppy. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much again. I will be trying to do another live stream on Wednesday and Friday of this week. In the meantime, check out our latest video. I just dropped it today on the top 5 best morphs for advanced keepers. I think you'll really enjoy it. But thank you guys. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you next time. And have a Geeky Gecko great night, guys. Bye.